China and Russia used to hate each other. They couldn't stand each other. You know, when Mao went to visit Stalin during the height of the Cold War, Stalin just made him wait for hours before he met him. And Mao famously said something along the lines of, "I didn't come to the Soviet Union just to wait and..." To see where they've come today is really quite something, and I'm going to be unpacking this in today's episode, and I'm going to be shedding a little bit of light on where the Western alliance is right now as well. But before we dive into it, do make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. World Order covers all things geopolitics, macroeconomics, and tech. Without further ado, let's dive into it. It started before 2022, but it really escalated in 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine. The Europeans cut Russia off, they cut the Russian gas off, hoping that it would destroy Russia. Russia has today redirected its energy exports towards China. It's the Europeans who seem to be losing out more from this arrangement than Russia is, because they're now having to buy their energy and gas from the United States for much higher prices. In May 2025, Xi visited Putin in Moscow and was his guest of honor during the 80th anniversary of the Soviet World War II victory. The two have signed a joint statement on further deepening China-Russia ties. It's a hell of a long name. It's right here up on the screen. It consists of 30 agreements, okay, and it include interbank connectivity, financial collaboration, expanding settlements in national currencies, educational and cultural exchanges, and much more. These are all ways of breaking free of the US system, especially the interbank connectivity, which is not exclusive to Russia and China. It's being done by countries like Russia and Iran and stuff as well. They're finding ways of breaking free of the US financial system, which then makes it much more difficult for the US and the Europeans to sanction them if they ever do things the former disapprove of. It's a well-known fact in the geopolitical area, right, that you don't want Russia and China uniting because they complement each other quite well in ways that Russia and America never really could. I'll explain what I mean by that later, but look at everything China is now doing for Russia, right? China is basically exporting all of Russia's goods for it. Russia used to, back in the early 2000s, Russia basically imported zero from China. After Russia's invasion of Ukraine, China suddenly accounted for 25% of all of Russia's imports. And today, estimates put this figure between 40 and 50%, which is massive. China's also selling Russia drones, okay, tech, machinery, cars, phones. And then Russia is now helping China by providing it with intelligence, providing it with gas and energy, which is what Russia has lots of, and also providing it with military expertise, right? From the front battlefields of Ukraine, the Russians take this expertise and then relay it to China, which has a massive army, but an inexperienced army. Again, you know, we knock Russia a lot because it does have some very significant shortcomings, especially for a great power like it is. But it's really good at a select few things: intelligence, military, and natural resources. Right? You know, those are three of the big 8 factors that I look at, but it's really strong in those 3. Now, Marco Rubio was seeing this, and you know, it bothered him. He went to Riyadh in February 2025 to try and partner with the Russians. That's his words, not mine. Partner with the Russians. The thinking is that Rubio was trying to do a reverse Kissinger or a reverse Nixon, however you want to say it. For those of you who don't know, Henry Kissinger is kind of a famous geopolitical strategist. He served as Nixon's Secretary of State and National Security Advisor during the 70s, and he was still alive during Trump's first administration. And there's even an article in Daily Beast which said that Kissinger was encouraging Trump to side with Russia against China. He was basically encouraging Trump to do the reverse of what he had done 40 to 50 years earlier, which is during the Cold War in the early 70s, the United States was getting quite scared of the Soviet Union and the abundance of arms they were producing. They wanted to weaken them, and so they turned to China and they struck up a partnership with China to scare the Russians, and it worked. You know, Nixon flies to China in the early 70s, forms at first a tepid partnership with Mao, and this starts to really freak the Soviets out. And before you know it, the Soviets are coming to the Americans begging for deals. Kissinger wanted Trump to do the reverse thing, where he went and teamed up with Putin against Xi, but this looks incredibly unlikely when you can look at the structural factors. The bonds in trade and finance and now intelligence and military ties between these two countries have grown in a way that I don't think many people could have anticipated. I was curious, you know, I was thinking, could the United States offer Russia what China can? It can't. I mean, realistically, I just don't think it can. You know, America and Russia are quite similar in that they both rely on military expertise. They both rely on the export of natural gas and energy. They both rely on food exports and wheat exports. they're quite similar economies in many ways. I think like Russia's a bit weaker in many areas, but they're similar. America has very little to offer Russia, and this has been historically true as well. Historically, America has had very little to offer Russia, as opposed to China, which is the world's manufacturer. China has an abundance of stuff to offer Russia. And Russia's repaying the favor by building pipelines to China. Geographically, these two powers, some believe, are destined to be at odds. This is a theory put forward by Halford Mackinder, not that one, who argued that whoever controls the Eurasian heartland controls the world. This theory is turned on its head by Nicholas Spikeman, who argued that controlling the rimland, the coastal edges of Eurasia, was key. You pair this with the fact that Putin has historically seen one US leader after another come in and be against him, and the chances of a US-Russian rapprochement seem dismal, seem very, very dim. So China, Iran, Russia, and North Korea have instead teamed up in this thing called CRINKS, right? And you're seeing this alliance take shape in the form of agreements, right? In 2021, Beijing and Tehran reached a 25-year agreement. China secured discounted Iranian oil, and Iran secured Chinese investments into their energy, transport, and manufacturing sectors. China has offered Iran $400 billion in investments, and this is what I mean with China. They just have so much money. They've just played the economic thing so well that countries are flocking to China. You look at these countries in BRICS, they're not going to China because they love China. They're going to China because China's just got so much money, and money talks. China's offering to help them, invest in their infrastructure. America's just offering to put tariffs on them. Who do you think they're going to turn to, man? You have to understand that the country now offers investment, arms, rare earths, an abundance of manufacturing goods. I'm showing you a graph on the screen right now. It shows you the amount of countries that now have China as their primary trading partner, an almost complete opposite to what it was maybe 25 years ago. Now, this isn't to say that Trump's lost these countries forever. You've got the tech titans working under him that hold vast portions of the globe under their sway. More than 68% of the world relies on the American tech giants for cloud, a core component of their digital operations. Amazon remains the globe's e-commerce platform, its go-to e-commerce platform. If you look down the list, you can see the competitors, some of which are Chinese. Facebook remains the world's most used social media. Zuckerberg controls 3 of the top 5 as well in that list. Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, these are powerful companies that are very much integrating themselves in the rest of the world if they haven't done so already. When you look at things like semiconductors, right, America's still calling all the shots on these, made some great videos specifically on the tech war, the leverage America has over semiconductors. And again, it's not that simple. And America still has a lot of pull, but I'm just saying, you got to look at China as well. As of 2024, China remains North Korea's principal economic partner, accounting for 98% of its trade. Putin and Kim Jong-un have been getting close as well. There's a picture of him in this car right here. Putin has forgiven Kim's country of 90% of its Soviet-era debt in return for investment rights in its energy, healthcare, and education. And then you've got the increasing relationship between Iran and Russia, which is quite odd, because Iran and Russia have a tense history. Iranians are very distrustful of the Russians. Maybe not as distrustful of Russians as they are with Americans, but still very distrustful of the Russians. There have been times when Russians had their eye on taking all of Iran. I think there was a bit of tension during World War II. But as of 2025, January 2025, Russia's won over Iran by signing a 20-year comprehensive strategic partnership covering interbank cooperation. This is a really big one, by the way. Investment in energy, defense coordination, and sanctions circumvention. This one's more about Russia and Iran coming together just because they want to get away from the United States, not necessarily because they love each other. But the bank thing's interesting, very interesting, because it means that Russia and Iran can send payments to one another without going through the US-dominated SWIFT system. The pair are also developing a trade route between themselves and India. And here's the most interesting fact about these 4 countries, right? CRINKS. As of 2023, bilateral trade flowing between these countries exceeded $255 billion, rising from 16.6% in 2022 to a whopping 49% increase since 2021. This now raises questions for the West. Is the West still Europe and America, which is the understanding for 80 years? Or are these two now separate regions that are now competing? You know, for a long time, whenever America did something, Europe would follow. So whenever America would impose sanctions on like Libya, like 2011, or Russia 2014 onwards, or Iran from 2006 onwards, like every year since then, Europe would follow and put sanctions on as well. Not always in total deference, but in those 3 cases I just outlined, they definitely did. But is Europe so dependent on America that it still goes along with whatever America says? We've seen this compliance with the trade and the security measures. But earlier this week, Trump asked Europe to put 100% tariffs on India and China. And as according to Reuters, this looks very, very unlikely to happen. And when you look at it structurally, a becomes very obvious why. Europe is incredibly reliant on China for trade. As of 2023, EU-China goods trade totaled 860 billion, with a heavy deficit on Europe's behalf. It imports electronics, solar panels, cars, luxury goods, machinery. Germany alone exports 40% of its cars to China. And the Chinese have invested in European ports, energy grids, and tech infrastructure. All of this makes it much harder for Europe to decouple from China than America. America can pretty much handle itself. If not fully by itself, then pressuring allies to give in to its demands. Europe doesn't have that swagger or that power or that sway. As things stand, it's very much in Europe's interest to maintain good relations with China. They've shown signs of caving before. During Trump's first administration, he successfully managed to get many European countries to ban Huawei, right? Not just because Trump told them, it served their interests as well. Some, like the Scandinavian countries, have Nokia and stuff like that. But Trump managed to get them to basically block Huawei, which is a Chinese tech company wanting to get involved in their economies. And you could see more signs of this over the years, but again, Europe's not going to totally compromise on its own economic interest just to serve America. And this is where the questions remain about how close a relationship this is going to be in the near future. Let's not forget how the way Trump treated Europe when he first came in, saying that the EU was formed to screw America. Europe has shown interest in maintaining good relations with America. When Trump asked them to spend up to 5% of their GDP on arms, Europe agreed. When Trump imposed 15% tariffs on them, Europe accepted. Europe's biggest problem with America is the technology thing. They really dislike what the American tech companies are doing to them. Already through the Digital Markets Act, the EU has fined Meta $200 million for forcing users to choose between whether they want all their data used for personal advertising or whether they want to pay a subscription service. They fined Apple $500 million for anti-steering rules. So basically what Apple's doing was, it wasn't allowing companies in its app store, big companies like Spotify and Netflix, from redirecting users to their own websites for subscription deals. Instead, Apple was making it so that if users would have to sign up, at least on the App Store, they would have to sign up with Netflix or Spotify through the App Store. That way, Apple gets 30% of the cut. And these are monopolistic practices that the EU just won't tolerate. And Trump's got a massive problem with the EU doing this to American tech companies. Google and Amazon have faced similar scrutiny, kind of prioritizing their own services above competition. This will be the key thing in determining what happens of the EU-US relationship in the near future. Before I end, I want to look at Japan as well, because Japan is a bit like the UK or Israel, in the sense that it's historically been very loyal to the United States. It's one of the... I'm going to do a future video on this. America seems to have a lot more influence and seems to be doing a lot better with the oceanic powers. Your Australias, Japans, UKs, and so on, than it does like your core continental powers like Europe, Russia, China, India, whatever. Now, Japan has agreed to invest over $550 billion in the economic and security interest of the United States. It's promised to disperse this by January 19, 2029, which is the final day of Trump's presidency. For Leo Lewis of the FT, the deal reeks of coercion. Once Japan recoups its investment, it reaps only 10% of the cash flow from the project as opposed to America's 90%. And yet Japan, like Europe, has given in to US demands because of the leverage America has. The fear is that if Japan doesn't invest, the US can impose new tariffs on Japan, which is the last thing they can afford. So in conclusion, the blocs are still forming. A lot of countries outside of China and Russia want to maintain good relations with multiple partners. Saudi Arabia, India, these are countries that want to maintain good relations with both China and America. So the blocs aren't as consolidated as they were during the Cold War, what with NATO and Warsaw Pact, for example, where you really do have two separate worlds. It's more mixed. It's more messy. The question is, will these blocs become more official and established in the years ahead? And I think they will. Look, well, you're already seeing it with Russia and China, which is essentially already a bloc. The ones to watch is Europe and America. Will that become one, or will that remain detached? America and the oceanic powers, and Southeast Asia as well, because I know a lot of them are very close to China, a lot of them are members in BRICS, but a lot of them have ties with the United States as well. So that'll be one to watch. Guys, many thanks for watching. I really hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Do give it a like and subscribe if you're new here. World Order covers all things geopolitics, macroeconomics, and tech. I'm so excited because I'm going to be releasing the first red label in maybe over a year. It's been so long since I've done the red labels. Red labels are different. You're watching the World Order show, which is a weekly analysis show. But I also do the red labels, which are almost like mini movies. And the work I'm now doing with AI animation, I believe, is going to push this red label so far. It's going to do so well. And these red labels are fundamentally different. Whereas with the World Order show, I really do try and analyze and explain what's going on in the world. The red labels are more kind of rags to riches inspirational stories. That's at least what I'm aiming to do with them. And you're going to see the first one come out hopefully within the next couple months. I'm so hyped. It's going to be so good. So hit the bell icon so that you stay up to date with all new World Order content. I am also working on a third project called the World Order Sagas, which are going to be fictional sci-fi fantasy stories, but that's the furthest along the road, and that won't be released for quite some time, not until next year earliest. Okay, guys, many thanks for watching today. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What do you think the blocks are going to be? And look, I'll see you all in the next episode. Take care. Bye bye.